Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, we invite you into the shadows of the Paris Opera House, a place where beauty, music, and mystery quietly coexist. Behind its golden balconies and glowing chandeliers, a hidden world waits in silence. A world of whispers, secrets, and a lonely soul who watches from the darkness. This is the story of a young singer whose voice touched the heart of a forgotten man, and of a figure who lived between fear and longing, hidden behind a mask. Please find a quiet place, take a deep breath, and let the music guide you into the night. Now, let us begin, The Phantom of the Opera. Chapter 1, The Legend of the Opera Ghost. For many years, the Paris Opera House had been surrounded by strange and unsettling rumors. Singers, musicians, stagehands, and even wealthy patrons whispered about an unseen presence that seemed to move freely through the enormous building. This mysterious figure was known simply as the Opera Ghost. Some people laughed at the stories and called them childish superstition, while others believed that the ghost was very real and dangerously powerful. This mysterious figure was known simply as the Opera Ghost. Some people laughed at the stories and called them childish superstition, while others believed that the ghost was very real and dangerously powerful. The opera house itself was a masterpiece of architecture. Its grand staircases were carved from polished marble, its balconies were decorated with gold, and enormous crystal chandeliers illuminated the hall like glowing constellations. Every evening, elegant audiences gathered to enjoy opera and ballet, unaware of the silent fear that lived behind the curtains, deep inside the walls. Hidden corridors and forgotten chambers twisted through the building like a secret maze, and many believed that this was where the ghost made its home. Workers often spoke of strange sounds echoing through empty hallways late at night. Footsteps could be heard when no one was present. Doors opened by themselves, and lights flickered without explanation. In the lower levels of the opera house, where storage rooms and abandoned spaces lay, cold winds would suddenly sweep through the air, even during the warmest summer evenings. Some claimed to feel invisible eyes watching them from the darkness, as if something unseen were observing their every move. No one had ever seen the opera ghost clearly, but rumors about its appearance spread quickly. Some said it had a face as pale as death, with sunken eyes and a mouth shaped like a skull. Others described a thin, shadowy figure that disappeared the moment it was noticed. The most frightening stories claimed that the ghost wore a mask to hide a horribly deformed face, as if it were neither fully alive nor fully human. The managers of the opera house began receiving strange letters written in elegant but unsettling handwriting. These letters demanded money, privacy, and respect. They insisted that the ghost be given a private box in the theater, reserved only for its use. The letters also demanded that a young singer be promoted to leading roles. Regardless of the director's plans, each message ended with the same signature, the Opera Ghost. At first, the managers laughed. Paris was full of artists and pranksters, and they believed the letters were part of an elaborate joke. But when the demands were ignored, accidents began to happen. A heavy stage decoration fell without warning during rehearsal. A rope snapped at a dangerous moment. Later, a stagehand was found dead under mysterious circumstances. Panic spread among the staff, and whispers of the ghost grew louder and more fearful. Despite the growing danger, performances continued. Wealthy audiences still filled the opera hall. Eager for beauty, music, and drama, the show had to go on, even if something terrifying lurked behind the scenes. Backstage, however, many workers refused to walk alone at night. Some claimed to hear strange music drifting up from the lower levels of the building, as if an unseen musician were practicing in the shadows. Among the performers was a young chorus girl named Christine Dye. She was shy, soft-spoken, and rarely noticed by the public. Her voice was pleasant, but she had never been considered exceptional. After the death of her father, Christine often felt lonely and uncertain about her future. Yet she remembered a comforting story her father once told her, a story about the angel of music, a mysterious spirit who guided talented singers. One evening, while practicing alone in a quiet rehearsal room, Christine heard a voice speaking to her from behind the wall. The voice was calm, gentle, and strangely powerful. It praised her singing and offered to teach her. Christine could not see anyone, but the voice sounded kind and wise. She believed that the angel of music had finally come to guide her. From that night forward, Christine's singing improved at an astonishing rate. Her voice grew stronger, clearer, and more emotional. Her performances began to attract attention, and soon she was given more important roles. The audience was enchanted, and the opera house buzzed with excitement over the rise of this once-unknown singer. But behind Christine's sudden success, the mysterious presence of the opera ghost became more active. The letters grew more demanding, the warnings more severe, and the strange events more dangerous. While Christine believed she was being guided by a heavenly spirit, others feared she was unknowingly connected to something far darker. Thus, the legend of the opera ghost continued to grow, woven from fear, mystery, and whispered secrets hidden within the grand walls of the Paris Opera House. Chapter 2: The Voice Behind the Mirror. Christine Daa's sudden rise to fame amazed everyone at the Paris Opera House. Only a short time earlier, she had been a quiet chorus girl, rarely noticed by the audience. Now, her voice filled the grand hall with power and emotion, and critics praised her performances as if she were a true star. Many wondered how such a transformation had happened so quickly. Christine herself believed she knew the answer. She was certain that the angel of music had chosen her. The mysterious voice that spoke to her in the practice rooms had guided her singing, corrected her mistakes, and encouraged her when she felt unsure. To Christine, the voice felt kind, wise, and protective. She never questioned its true identity. One evening, after rehearsal, Christine remained alone in her dressing room. The opera house was unusually quiet. The distant sounds of footsteps echoed through the corridors, and the lights cast long shadows across the walls. Christine sat in front of her mirror, slowly removing her stage makeup. As she gazed at her reflection, she heard the familiar voice once again. It spoke softly, calling her name. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Christine's heart began to beat faster, but she did not feel afraid. The voice praised her performance and told her she had done well. It promised to teach her even more, to make her voice greater than anyone else's. Then something extraordinary happened. The mirror in front of Christine seemed to shimmer, as if it were made of water instead of glass. The air grew cold, and a faint mist filled the room. Slowly, the mirror slid aside, revealing a hidden passage behind the wall. Christine gasped, but the voice remained calm. It invited her to follow. The passage was narrow and dimly lit, leading deep into the unknown parts of the opera house. Though her mind told her to be cautious, her heart trusted the voice completely. She stepped forward and disappeared into the darkness. The hidden corridor twisted and turned beneath the opera house. Candles flickered along the walls, casting dancing shadows. The sound of water dripping echoed through the silence. Christine felt as if she had entered a secret world that no ordinary person was meant to see. At the end of the passage, she arrived at a strange underground chamber. The room was filled with music. A powerful organ stood in the center, and a masked figure sat before it, playing with incredible skill. The melody was haunting, beautiful, and filled with deep emotion. This was the first time Christine saw the one behind the voice. The figure wore a mask that covered half of his face. His eyes were intense, and his presence felt both commanding and mysterious. He introduced himself as her teacher, the one who had guided her voice. He spoke of music as if it were a sacred art, something that demanded devotion and obedience. Christine listened in silence, overwhelmed by the strange beauty of the underground world. The masked man praised her talent and promised to make her the greatest singer in Paris. He told her that the outside world did not understand true music, but that he did. Though Christine felt uneasy, she could not deny the power of his presence. His words seemed to fill her mind, and his music stirred her soul. She believed that he truly cared about her future. When Christine finally returned to the surface, the opera house felt different. The bright lights and familiar corridors seemed unreal compared to the hidden world below. She told no one about the secret passage or the masked man. The angel of music, she believed, was her private miracle. But in the shadows, the mysterious figure watched her every move. His influence over Christine grew stronger, and the boundary between guidance and control began to blur. The voice behind the mirror was no longer just a comforting presence, it had become a powerful force in her life. And deep beneath the opera house, the masked man waited patiently for his next chance to draw Christine back into his hidden world. Chapter 3: The Masked Man. Christine could not forget the underground chamber or the masked man who called himself her teacher. Even when she stood on the brightly lit stage, singing before a cheering audience, her thoughts often drifted back to the hidden world beneath the opera house. The haunting music of the organ, the flickering candlelight, and the intense gaze of the masked man remained vivid in her mind. To the outside world, Christine appeared calm and confident. Her performances continued to impress both the audience and the directors. She was no longer just a chorus girl. She had become a rising star. Yet inside her heart, she felt uneasy. The mysterious figure who guided her voice was no longer just a comforting presence. His influence was growing stronger, and his attention toward her felt increasingly possessive. One evening, Christine met her childhood friend, Raoul de Chagny, a young nobleman who had recently returned to Paris. Raoul remembered Christine as a gentle girl who used to sing with her father. Now, he was amazed by how much her voice had changed. He praised her talent and expressed his joy at seeing her again after so many years. Christine was happy to see Raoul, but she also felt nervous. She could not tell him about the angel of music or the hidden world beneath the opera house. Those secrets felt too strange and personal to share. Instead, she simply smiled and thanked him for his kind words. Later that night, as Christine walked alone through the quiet corridors, she sensed a familiar presence. The air grew cold, and the shadows seemed to move. Then, the calm and powerful voice spoke to her once more. It reminded her of her promise to obey and to trust her teacher above all others. The masked man was watching. From the darkness, he observed Christine's interactions with Raoul. Jealousy stirred within him like a burning flame. He believed that Christine belonged to the world of music, the world he controlled. Any outside influence, especially from another man, felt like a threat. Soon after, Christine received another invitation to return to the underground chamber. The hidden passage opened once more, and she followed the familiar path beneath the opera house. The candles glowed softly, and the sound of the organ echoed through the stone corridors. When she reached the chamber, the masked man was waiting. His posture was rigid, and his voice carried a sharp edge. He spoke of loyalty, of devotion to music, and of the danger of emotional distractions. Christine listened in silence, sensing his growing anger. He revealed more of his past that night. He spoke of a life spent in isolation, rejected by society because of his appearance. Music, he said, was the only thing that had ever accepted him. Through music, he had built a world of his own beneath the opera house, a place where he could exist without judgment. Christine felt a mix of pity and fear. She understood his loneliness, yet she could not ignore the darkness in his words. His devotion to her talent was intense, almost obsessive. As the organ's music filled the chamber, Christine realized that her teacher was not an angel, but a man brilliant, wounded, and dangerous. The mask hid more than just his face. It concealed a troubled soul shaped by pain and isolation. When Christine returned to the surface once again, she felt torn between two worlds. Above ground, she had friends, memories, and the possibility of a normal life. Below, she had music, mystery, and the powerful presence of the masked man. And in the shadows of the opera house, the man behind the mask continued to watch, waiting for the moment when Christine would belong to his world completely. Chapter 4. Beneath the Opera House. The deeper Christine went into the hidden world beneath the opera house, the more she realized how vast and mysterious it truly was. What she had once believed to be a single secret chamber was, in fact, part of an enormous underground network. Narrow tunnels, stone staircases, and forgotten rooms stretched endlessly beneath the grand building above. Water dripped from the ceiling, forming dark pools along the floor. The air was cool and heavy, carrying the scent of damp stone. Faint echoes of music sometimes drifted through the tunnels, as if the opera house itself were breathing through the walls. To Christine, the underground felt both magical and terrifying. The masked man guided her through this hidden world with quiet confidence. He knew every passage, every hidden door, every shadowy corner. To him, the underground was not a prison, it was a kingdom. Here he ruled over silence, darkness, and music. He spoke to Christine about the beauty of isolation. The world above, he said, was full of shallow emotions and false applause. People praised singers one day and forgot them the next. Underground, however, music was pure. There were no distractions, no judgment, only sound and devotion. Christine listened, uncertain how to respond. Part of her understood his love for music, but another part longed for the warmth of the world above. She missed sunlight, friendly voices, and the simple joy of ordinary life. As they walked deeper, Christine noticed strange objects scattered throughout the tunnels. Old musical scores, broken instruments, and faded costumes lay abandoned like forgotten memories. Some rooms were filled with mirrors, reflecting endless images of darkness. Others contained strange mechanical devices that clicked and whispered in the silence. The masked man explained that he had built many of these devices himself. He was not only a musician, but also an inventor and architect. His mind was sharp, his imagination limitless. Underground, he had created a world shaped entirely by his vision. Yet, there was also sorrow in this hidden kingdom. The walls were cold, the silence heavy, and the loneliness unmistakable. Christine began to realize how isolated her mysterious teacher truly was. At the heart of the underground world was a vast lake, hidden beneath the opera house. A small boat waited at the water's edge. The masked man led Christine across the dark surface, the water reflecting faint candlelight like distant stars. The silence was broken only by the gentle sound of the oars. On the far side of the lake stood another chamber, more beautiful than the others. Candles illuminated the stone walls, and music echoed softly through the space. This, the masked man said, was his true home. He spoke of dreams he had never been able to share with the world above. Dreams of composing great music, of being admired, of living without fear or shame. But his appearance, he believed, had stolen those dreams away. Christine felt a deep sadness for him. Beneath the mask, beneath the control and the mystery, she saw a lonely soul who had been rejected by society. Still, she could not ignore the danger of his devotion. His love for music and for her was intense, overwhelming, and impossible to escape. As they returned toward the surface, Christine felt torn between sympathy and fear. The underground world had revealed the true depth of the masked man's pain, but it had also shown her how far he was willing to go to protect his hidden kingdom. Above them, the opera house continued to shine with beauty and applause. Below, in silence and shadow, the masked man waited, guarding his world and his secrets. Chapter 5: The Falling Chandelier. The night of the grand performance had arrived, and the Paris Opera House was more magnificent than ever. The audience filled every seat, dressed in elegant gowns and formal suits. Laughter, conversation, and anticipation echoed through the golden halls as the orchestra prepared to begin. Above them all, the enormous crystal chandelier shimmered like a crown of light. Behind the curtains, however, tension hung in the air. The managers had recently ignored several mysterious letters signed by the opera ghost. They believed the threats were nothing more than attempts to cause fear. The performance would go on, they insisted, no matter what. Christine stood backstage, listening to the distant sound of the orchestra tuning their instruments. Her heart felt heavy. She had sensed the presence of the masked man growing stronger in recent days. The calm voice that once guided her now carried an edge of warning, as if something terrible was about to happen. Raoul, who had come to support Christine, noticed her unease. He tried to comfort her, speaking of the beauty of the music and the joy of the audience. Christine smiled, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She could not shake the feeling that the opera ghost was watching from the shadows. As the performance began, the curtain rose and the music filled the hall. The singers' voices soared, and the audience watched in admiration. From the outside, everything appeared perfect, but hidden high above the stage, in the dark corners of the ceiling, the masked man was at work. He had warned the managers. He had demanded obedience. Now, he would make them understand the cost of ignoring him. The massive chandelier, suspended by heavy chains, began to tremble. At first, no one noticed. The music was too loud, the voices too powerful. But then a sharp metallic sound cut through the harmony. The chains snapped. In a terrifying instant, the chandelier fell from the ceiling. Glass shattered, crystals exploded into the air, and a deafening crash shook the entire building. Screams filled the hall. As the audience rushed to escape, dust and debris covered the stage, and panic spread like fire. Christine stood frozen, her heart pounding. She knew, without a doubt, who was responsible. The opera ghost had made his presence known to everyone. Chaos followed. Performers fled, musicians dropped their instruments, and guards struggled to control the frightened crowd. The once beautiful opera house became a place of fear and confusion. From the darkness, the masked man watched calmly. His message had been delivered. The world above had finally felt the power of the world below. Later, as the damage was assessed and the injured were tended to, whispers filled the halls once more. Some claimed to have seen a shadow moving across the ceiling. Others swore they heard strange laughter echoing through the corridors. Christine, shaken by the event, realized how dangerous the situation had become. The man she once believed to be an angel was capable of destruction. His love for music, his devotion to her, and his anger toward the world had merged into something terrifying. Raoul, determined to protect Christine, promised that he would not let her face this danger alone. He spoke of finding the truth behind the opera ghost and putting an end to the fear that haunted the opera house. But deep beneath the building, the masked man remained in his hidden kingdom. The falling chandelier was not an accident, it was a warning. And it was only the beginning. Chapter 6: The Phantom's Past. After the night of the falling chandelier, the atmosphere at the Paris Opera House changed completely. Fear lingered in every corridor, and even the brightest rooms felt heavy with unease. Guards were posted in greater numbers. Yet no one truly believed they could stop the mysterious figure, who moved unseen through the building. Christine could not escape the memories of what had happened, the crash of glass, the screams of the audience, and the silence that followed haunted her thoughts. More than anything, she could not forget the masked man's presence. His actions were no longer those of a hidden teacher. They were the acts of someone willing to destroy the world above to protect his own. One evening, Christine received another message. It was not a letter, but a soft voice in the darkness, calling her name. The tone was no longer gentle. It carried a deep sadness, mixed with anger and longing. Against her better judgment, Christine followed the familiar path into the underground world once more. The journey felt longer than before. The tunnels seemed darker, the silence heavier. When she reached the chamber by the hidden lake, the masked man was already waiting. He stood still, his figure reflected in the black water, his mask shining faintly in the candlelight. This time, he did not speak of music first. Instead, he spoke of himself. He told Christine that he had been born different. His face, he said, had always frightened people. From the moment others saw him, they turned away in fear or disgust. He had never been treated as a normal child, never welcomed into ordinary society. Wherever he went, doors were closed to him. As he grew older, his loneliness deepened. He wandered from place to place, searching for a world that would accept him. Some people used his talents, but never offered kindness. Others chased him away. His appearance made him an outcast, even when his mind was brilliant and his heart longed for connection. Music became his only comfort. When he played, the world felt quieter, kinder, more beautiful. Sound was the one place where he could exist without judgment. Through music, he built a world that belonged only to him. Eventually, he found refuge beneath the opera house. The underground spaces offered him safety and secrecy. There, he could live without being seen, without being mocked or feared. Over time, he transformed the hidden tunnels into a kingdom of his own making, filled with music, shadows, and silence. Christine listened in silence as he spoke. His voice was calm, but pain echoed through every word. Beneath the mask was not a monster, but a man shaped by rejection and isolation. He admitted that his actions had been cruel. The falling chandelier, the threats, the fear he had caused, they were the result of years of anger and loneliness. He wanted the world to feel what he had felt. Yet there was also longing in his confession. He had never known love, acceptance, or peace. Christine, with her gentle voice and kindness, had become a symbol of everything he had lost. To him, she was not just a student, she was hope. Christine felt torn. She pitied the man who had suffered so deeply, but she could not ignore the danger he represented. His pain had turned into control, and his desire for connection had become obsession. As the candles flickered, the masked man spoke one final truth. He did not want to be feared anymore. He wanted to be understood. But understanding alone would not be enough to erase the darkness that surrounded him. Christine returned to the surface with a heavy heart. She now knew the story behind the mask, but the future remained uncertain. The opera house was still under the shadow of the phantom, and his past had shaped a present filled with danger. Deep below, in the silence of his hidden world, the masked man remained alone, surrounded by music, memories, and the echoes of a life never truly lived. Chapter 7. Raoul's Plan. After learning the truth about the phantom's past, Christine felt torn between fear and sympathy. She now understood the loneliness and pain that had shaped the masked man, but she also knew how dangerous his obsession had become. The opera house was no longer just a place of music and beauty. It had become a battleground between love, control, and freedom. Raoul, however, refused to let fear decide Christine's future. He had seen the change in her eyes, the way her confidence had slowly turned into unease. He knew that whatever power the phantom held over her, it was not something she had chosen freely. Raoul was determined to protect her, no matter the risk. One evening, after a quiet rehearsal, Raoul asked Christine to walk with him outside the opera house. The streets of Paris were calm, and the distant lights reflected softly on the river. Away from the shadows of the theater, Christine felt a sense of peace she had almost forgotten. Raoul spoke gently but firmly. He told Christine that she deserved a life in the light, not one hidden in underground chambers. He reminded her of her childhood dreams, of her father's love, and of the simple happiness she once knew. Christine listened, her heart aching with memories of a life before the phantom. She confessed everything to Raoul: the voice behind the mirror, the secret passages, the underground lake, and the masked man who called himself her teacher. Raoul was shocked, but his resolve only grew stronger. He promised that they would face the phantom together. Their plan was simple but dangerous. Christine would return to the opera house and sing as she always had, drawing the phantom's attention. Raoul, with the help of trusted guards, would attempt to follow her into the hidden tunnels and uncover the truth about the phantom's movements. Christine hesitated. She knew how clever and unpredictable the phantom was. The underground world was his kingdom, and every shadow belonged to him. Still, she also knew that she could not remain trapped forever. With a trembling heart, she agreed. The night of the plan arrived. The opera house once again glowed with music and applause. Christine's voice filled the hall, beautiful and clear, but her mind was focused on what lay beneath the stage. She felt the familiar presence watching her, listening to every note. As expected, the hidden passage opened after her performance. The voice called her softly, guiding her into the darkness. Christine followed, just as she always had, but this time, Raoul was close behind, moving silently through the shadows. The tunnels were darker than ever. Water echoed in the distance, and the air felt thick with tension. Christine sensed that the phantom knew something was different. The silence was heavier, the atmosphere charged with unease. At the underground lake, the phantom waited, his masked face reflected in the black water, his posture rigid. He sensed the presence of another. His voice, once calm, now carried a sharp edge. "Someone is here," he said. Raoul stepped forward from the shadows, revealing himself. He stood tall, though his heart was racing. He told the phantom that Christine was not his possession and that she deserved to choose her own path. For a moment, the underground world felt frozen in time. The phantom's silence was more terrifying than his anger. Beneath the mask, years of rejection, jealousy, and fear collided. Christine stood between them, her voice shaking as she begged for peace. She asked the phantom to let her go, to release her from the world of shadows. The phantom's response was not gentle. His control over the underground world became clear. He spoke of destiny, of music, of a bond that could not be broken. But behind his words was desperation, the fear of being alone once more. Raoul realized that escape would not be easy. The phantom knew every path, every door, every secret passage. Still, he refused to give up. He held Christine's hand and prepared to face whatever came next. In the depths of the opera house, 3 lives now stood on the edge of a dangerous turning point. Love, fear, and freedom clashed in the darkness, and the future of Christine Daae hung in the balance. Chapter 8: The Final Confrontation. The underground chamber felt heavier than ever before. The air was thick with tension, and the soft glow of candlelight cast long, trembling shadows across the stone walls. Christine stood between Raoul and the masked man, her heart racing as the silence stretched on. The Phantom's eyes burned with emotion. Years of isolation, rejection, and longing had led to this moment. His hidden world, built from music and darkness, now felt threatened by the presence of another man. Raoul was not just a rival, he was a symbol of the life Christine might choose without him. "You belong to the music," the Phantom said quietly. "You belong here." His voice was controlled, but beneath the calm surface, desperation echoed. He spoke of destiny, of how Christine's voice had awakened something deep within him. To the Phantom, her presence was not just inspiration, it was meaning itself. Raoul stepped forward, refusing to be intimidated. He spoke of freedom, of choice, and of love that did not demand obedience. He reminded Christine that her life was her own, not something to be claimed by the shadows. Christine felt torn apart. She could feel the Phantom's pain, but she also felt the strength of Raoul's devotion. Both men stood before her, each representing a different future. The Phantom's control over the underground world became terrifyingly clear. Hidden mechanisms moved at his command. Doors shifted, walls echoed with strange sounds, and the darkness itself seemed to answer him. His kingdom was alive. But Christine did not tremble. With a steady voice, she spoke to the Phantom not as a student, but as a human being. She told him that fear had ruled his life for too long. She acknowledged his suffering, his loneliness, and the cruelty he had endured. But she also told him that love could not grow from control. For the first time, the Phantom hesitated. The words reached him in a way no threat ever had. His anger wavered, replaced by confusion and sorrow. Beneath the mask, the man who had been rejected by the world was finally being seen. Christine took a step closer. Gently, she reached out and touched his hand. There was no fear in her eyes, only compassion. In that moment, the underground world seemed to fall silent. The Phantom had spent his life hiding, controlling, and protecting himself from pain. But now, he faced something unfamiliar, understanding. Slowly, he released his hold on Christine. The hidden doors opened, and the path to the surface became clear. Raoul wasted no time. He guided Christine toward the light, away from the shadows and into the world above. Behind them, the Phantom remained still, watching as the only person who had ever truly understood him walked away. The underground kingdom, once filled with power and mystery, felt empty. For the first time in his life, the Phantom was truly alone. Final chapter: The Phantom's Fate. The Paris Opera House slowly returned to its familiar rhythm. Music once again filled the grand hall, and audiences gathered to enjoy performances as they always had. Yet something had changed. The shadows felt quieter, the corridors less threatening, and the whispers about the opera ghost began to fade. Christine and Raoul no longer walked beneath the chandeliers with fear in their hearts. They had escaped the underground world, and with it, the control that had held Christine captive for so long. Though the memory of the masked man still lingered in her thoughts, it no longer ruled her life. The Phantom, however, remained in the depths of the opera house, alone. In the silence of his hidden chamber, he reflected on everything that had happened. For the first time, the world had seen him not as a monster, but as a man capable of pain, longing, and change. Christine's compassion had reached a part of him that had been buried beneath years of anger and isolation. He wandered through the tunnels he had once called his kingdom. The mirrors reflected only emptiness. The music, once powerful and commanding, now echoed softly, as if mourning the loss of its purpose. The underground world, once alive with control, felt hollow. The Phantom realized that he had built his life around fear of rejection, fear of being seen, fear of being alone. His actions, though driven by pain, had caused suffering to others. The falling chandelier, the threats, the manipulation, all were shadows cast by a wounded soul. But Christine had shown him something new, She had looked beyond the mask. She had seen the man beneath it. For the first time, the phantom felt the weight of his own choices. He no longer wished to rule from the darkness. He no longer wished to control through fear. He only wished to disappear. As dawn approached, the opera house stood silent. The city above began to wake, unaware of the quiet ending taking place beneath its streets. The phantom left behind his mask in the hidden chamber. Christine later found it resting gently on a chair, as if its owner had simply stepped away. There was no sign of a struggle, no sign of violence, only silence. Some believed he had vanished into the depths of the city. Others whispered that he had died alone in the darkness. No one ever discovered the truth. But one thing was certain: the opera ghost was gone. Christine stood in the chamber for a long moment, her heart heavy but calm. She whispered a soft farewell, not to a monster, but to a man who had never known peace. Hand in hand with Raoul, she returned to the world above, where sunlight and music still waited. And deep beneath the opera house, the echoes of a lonely melody slowly faded into silence. And so, the music fades into silence. The opera house returns to its golden glow, but the shadows remember what the light has forgotten. Somewhere beneath the world of applause and laughter, a lonely melody still echoes, a reminder of a man who only wished to be understood. Thank you for listening. May this story stay with you, like a quiet song in the night. Good night and sweet dreams.